We went through your top corners just a couple weeks ago,
right?
And your list, in which again was a little bit had some of the consensus top guys, and some were the Chris Simms special, where you saw some qualities and that you liked or didn't like with some of those guys. And so here's your top five, and we told Devin, we were like, okay, take a look at these guys, which he was going to do anyway, but really come and bring your A game, because we need to knock Chris down a peg on his own pod. This rarely happens on your own pod, where someone comes in maybe and has a differing opinion that you may have to defer to. Devin, with all his credentials here, we might have to reshuffle your top five.
I'll listen to what he says. I will definitely, and I always respect it. Defer to him? I don't know if that's a definite, okay? I mean, I don't know about that.
I said you may have to.
But this is why I wanted Devin on. This is where it's great. I had been talking to Devin about this really since the on-the-field Lions playoff game against the Bucs, and I was like, hey, Devin, when I get going with the draft stuff, I'd love to bring you on the pod a few times. Maybe you could be our defensive back expert, right? And kind of chime in there. I don't expect them to see it exactly the same way I see it, but I know I've talked to Devin enough here in the last year about football to know we're not going to be too far off on our thoughts and how we see people, right? And I think this DB class, there's some interesting things to talk about, whether it's nickel, outside guys like we talk about. He brought up a guy a few minutes ago that he talked about where I was like, I know, I like him too, but is he a corner or is he a safety, right? So there's some nuance to it here, and that's where I'm interested to get, Mr. McCourty's thoughts.
Let's just start right at the top.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because you had Quinyon Mitchell, the corner from Toledo, who was awesome.
Right.
Blew it up at the Senior Bowl. People loved him. Questioned maybe the competition. You had him number one. You had Nate Wiggins number two from Clemson. Let's just start right there, Devin. Do you see those guys as the top two, and would you rank them in that same order?
I do see those guys as the top two, but I would flip it. I really enjoyed watching Nate Wiggins. I thought playing against North Carolina, against Walker, like he really took the top matchups. But I will say this, I think Quinyon Mitchell has probably the highest upside if he gets in the right system, gets the right coaching. Really raw to me when you watch him on film at Toledo. Right. Didn't get to play against a lot of the top competition. But what you love about Mitchell is when you turn on the one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl, he's just in his element. Looks so comfortable, enjoying it, dominating. But that's what I loved about Wiggins in actual game film. Watching him, obviously he goes to the combine and he flies. So you can see he'll be able to match up with anybody from an attribute standpoint. And what I love probably the most about him when I text Simms was he has that dog in him. He's flying around. He's looking at the opposing team sideline, just staring him down. That's that element that I think sometimes people don't look at. But when you play corner, especially when you're going to come in as a young guy, you're going to have a lot of bad moments. If you get drafted and you end up in like Minnesota, you're going to be matched up on JJ. You're going to be matched up on Justin Jefferson every single day. He's going to get the best of you a lot. I want to see how these kids rebound, come back. And the last thing I'll say is what was tough about watching a lot of these guys is as I turn on the film, the first thing I said is, all right, did you play LSU? Did you play Ohio State? Did you play against those guys?
Right.
And I would turn on Alabama, and I think both of their corners are really good football players. And they play LSU, and I'm like, they barely cover neighbors. I want to see this matchup. And college football is so interesting to me because you put your top corner in the boundary because of speed and all of that, and the ball barely goes to the boundary. So you have these guys taking a break most of the game. So it was very interesting. That's what I loved about Wiggins too. They matched him up a good amount on guys. Boundary, field, they moved him around. And I think that's what the league is about. When you're a rookie, you might have other corners already there that they might have to move you around. Not everybody's going to be the Sauce Gardners that come in right away, put them on an island and produce. Some of these guys have to maybe play nickel, maybe play outside and different things. So I thought Wiggins had a lot of versatility to do different things as a rookie and then continue to grow in the NFL.
So, I mean, we talked about it. Again, and we know he knows more than me about DBs, but I mean, I played against some, right, and threw against some, and was on some teams with some, right, where, I think the thing you look at are the attitude, right? We talked, one of the reasons I like those top two guys, and I love Quinyon Mitchell, is because he's got that attitude that he's referring to with Nate Wiggins. Mitchell's got it too. It's like, bring it on. Let's go. I broke it up. I'm going to let the opposing bench know, right? You got to have thick skin playing that position to that point. I'm covering the greatest athletes on the planet, right? They're going to make a few plays too when you're just chasing them around like you're a kid on the playground. So that's where I think we like that. But to you, still, the thing you're looking at, Devin, more than anything, right? And I think we're the same way in this way. It's just the pure physical ability, the pure explosiveness, because a lot of things I think, hand placement, hips, the way you put your foot into the ground to come out of a break. A lot of that is coachable stuff. So you want to see that pure explosive ability, and I think why those top two guys are who they are, because they have that element. Devin is interesting because he is, to me, he's just going a little bit more of like, wait, I've seen this guy against this competition,
exactly.
And he's going with the known instead of the little bit of the I don't know with Quinyon Mitchell, which I'm on a little bit of a limb with there. Yeah. But I understand his thought there all the way, 100%.
Yeah. So Devin, when you watch these two, and it was interesting you mentioned about Alabama, because that was part of the rankings that created the most stir probably out there. Is a lot of people have those Alabama guys in the top 5. Some even Terrion Arnold have number 1 corner. And Chris talked about the context clues of how they used him and how they played him. You mentioned kind of the same thing there, where Alabama not necessarily were protecting them, but maybe did not trust them on an island. Did you gather that from watching them, or is that just what they do?
And again, I don't watch as much college football through the years to say like this is Alabama's defense. One thing that stuck out to me was I thought those two guys were the most polished players of all of them. And to Chris's point, that's coaching. I thought they were very coachable. They understood route combinations. So I thought that enabled them to play at a high level. And I understand what Simms was saying, because when you look at the other things, it makes you question a little bit of, can they make that next step if they have to be on the island by themselves? They have to do different things. So I thought Terrion Arnold had a better year. I know people said Kool-Aid McKinstry had a better junior season than his senior season. But I thought Terrion Arnold did more things. I thought what really hurt me with Kool-Aid McKinstry was when he matched up against Mitchell, A.D. Mitchell, and Texas. Right. I thought he had a rough time. And when I watched A.D. Mitchell, I said, that's an NFL receiver. He changes pace, sets up his routes. He does different things that I really liked on film. And you got to be able to cover those guys in the NFL. There's no way around it. So I still think those guys, I would put Arnold probably around 4th in my top 5. I really liked, was it DJ James from Auburn? I thought he was a really good player. He matched up on neighbors in the slot a little bit, did different things, fast, athletic, turn his head, run.
Right.
So I really liked him as well. So I would probably put Arnold at 4. I think if you put him in the right system in the NFL, I think he'll be a really good player. I don't think he's a guy that you can say, hey, take this guy, follow him all around the field.
Right.
But I think in the right system, especially I've seen some projections had him going to like Minnesota. I think with Brian Flores, what they did last year, a lot of different blitz looks. You at corner, if you can understand when the ball's coming out hot, when they're going to have time. I think Terrion Arnold is a guy that understands. He looks very cerebral on film, so I could still see him being a really good player in the NFL.
Yeah, I think he's saying the same things we talked about, right? Like we said when we did the top 5, like I like these corners a lot. Totally. Like I want them on my team, both of them. To Devin's point, they know how to play. They tackle, right? Like he said, they're smart. They know how to play the right way according to the zone and the route combinations, reading it, whatever. They do everything well. There's just nothing to me that I look at to go, ooh, it's elite. And to Devin's point, it's like, yeah, I'm not necessarily going to go, ooh, it's 3rd and 5. I trust one of those guys man-to-man on a big down against Jamar Chase or something. No way in that department, right? But again, guys that you go, wait, they're really good players, and I'd like them to be on my team, and they certainly can play. And here's the context clue, Devin, that I kind of brought up too. Because I know you're new to this and you haven't been like watching film of draft guys for the last 5 years or whatever else, but the guy at Alabama, the head coach, I mean, he's like your old coach, right? When he has good corners, he goes, you play man and you play man, and then we'll do a bunch of other crap with everybody else. And that to me was the context clue a little bit to what you were referring to. I feel like if Nick Saban really felt like they were Patrick Surtain and some of those other guys, right, Trayvon Diggs, it would have been man-to-man all the game. But he knew that they weren't that type of guy, and that was, something that clued me in. So you say Arnold 4. Does that mean you'd put James from Auburn as number 3?
Yeah, I would. And again, I thought had all the athletic ability to play corner. And to me, like you just said, when your coach knows, like that's what good coaching is. Nick Saban knows what he has, and he plays to it. I thought Auburn's defense to say, hey, DJ James, you're our guy. Go get Neighbors in the slot. Go get Neighbors on this big third down.
Right.
Those different things showed me the confidence they had in him, and obviously the confidence he has in himself. I just love that when you watch guys, and my sleeper guy, as I said before we jumped on, at 5 is my guy Max Melton. Yeah, I'm a little biased.
I don't think that's a sleeper. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I really would have loved, and the next time I see Shannon, I'm like, why don't you match my guy on Marvin Harrison all game? Give him a shot. You're going against arguably the best receiver in college football. And I thought if he would have been able to match him the whole game, he had a couple matchups where he did pretty well against him.
Yeah.
But Marvin Harrison had 2 touchdowns on my guy Longer Beam, which were, really good catches, back shoulder, 2-yard fade routes in the end zone. A lot of times you can't do anything about that. But I just felt like if Max Melton would have had that in his resume, teams right now would be just, oh my goodness, he matched up on Marvin Harrison Jr. We got to move him up. But obviously he shined at the Senior Bowl as well, then went and ran fast at the combine. But he's a long arm corner, physical, has really good ball skills. His brother's obviously a receiver in the NFL. With Bo Melton. So I'm looking forward to seeing him, and hopefully he sneaks into this first round, maybe high second round.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say. I think, Max Melton has a lot of the things we talk about. I know you're biased and whatever. I'm from Jersey too, but there's no denying when you see a guy like it goes again to what we talk about, his ability to just get up in somebody's face and go, I'm not worried about who you are, how fast you are, whatever. I got, elite athletic ability, and that's the thing we see. And I think he's another guy that, not only can be on the outside with the top end speed he has, but to me, has some hips and he's got some things to work on where he's a little raw maybe as compared to the top guys. But like he could be in the slot too. It doesn't matter. He could play man to man anywhere on the football field. I think I would be shocked, really. I think he's top 40 all the way. It's just, does he slip into the end of the first round or, top of the second there? All right. So, we hit on that. I'm really happy that you saw DJ James the same way I did because, DJ James, I don't know. I don't pay attention to all the lists as quite to your capacity, but I don't feel like I see his name, in the top 3 or top 5 corner conversation.
End of the top 10.
End of the top 10
usually,
is the corners, right?
Yeah.
So that's good we see it. But I do want to know, some other guys that that pop to you that maybe not are in the top 5 for me or you, but you also looked at and went, wait, I like this player a lot. I'm not sure he's a top 5 cover corner, but he's a damn good defensive secondary player.
Yeah, 2 of those guys were Enos Rakestraw, 3 I'll say, and then DeCamerion Richardson from Mississippi State. And then I don't know how to say his last name, the slot corner from Michigan.
Yeah, Sainristil.
Oh,
Mikey Sainristil,
yeah.
Right.
Massachusetts guy, aggressive, physical. Seems like a guy you can put at safety, and certain defenses put him in the slot. Same thing we talked about before we got on with Rakestraw in Missouri. And what I liked about Rakestraw was they matched him on different guys. And sometimes I didn't even know if that was the best matchup, and he battled through injury a little bit last year. Right. But it was just like, this is our guy, and it seemed like he loves to be in those situations. And 2 guys that I'm not sure if they would be corners in the league, like we talked about earlier, for me was going to be TJ Tampa and Iowa State. I thought a lot of his film was 8 to 10 yards off coverage, break downhill, will hit you, physical guy, but not much of it was like man-to-man, in your face, not real. I just thought it was safe zone defense and play to his strength, seeing the ball. And the same thing with Cooper DeJean. To me, great football player, can do multiple things, obviously his return ability. But when I watched, I just was like, no one would line this guy up at corner.
Exactly.
Just stiff, aggressive, could play safety, possibly a slot.
He's more Eric Weddle than he is a corner, I honestly thought.
Yes.
Right?
It seems like he can have a really good NFL career, but I just don't see him outside or even in the slot on a true slot 3rd and 8 situation. I could see him in the slot when the team's in 2 tight end sets or bigger slot receiver, things like that. But I thought he was a really good football player. but I would not draft him in the first round to play corner on my team.
Yeah, I got you. That's kind of how we broke it down too, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of how I looked at it as well. Like a lot of things about him, but there's no way I'm trusting him man-to-man against Jamar Chase on 3rd and 7. That'll be a highlight show for Joe Burrow and company, you know.
Yes.
One of those players you said almost looks faster with the ball in his hands than
Exactly.
he does
I said as a returner and interceptor, you're like, wow, that speed's great. Where's that speed when you're running down the field with the receiver?
Yeah.
We both like Sainristil still. This is,
so
this
two
Michigan
of the names
fan
there.
over here.
Mikey Sainristil.
Right.
I love Mikey Sainristil.
Right.
He was always around the ball making big plays. 2 years as a defensive back. He was a wide receiver before that at Michigan. And so these are the guys kind of also receiving votes. And DeCamerion Richardson was also a guy. He's number 5 on your list, and that is outside of consensus. You see him sometimes, like not even on the first page of prospects for some. But you liked him as well, Devin.
Yeah, another guy can run, can stay with you. Neighbors he got him on a double move one time, and then he had another deep ball where he's in great position.
Yes.
And
Neighbors just made a great catch.
Makes a great catch.
Right.
But I thought time after time, matching up against the top guys, played a little bit into the boundary. And in college, I just love when the guys into the boundary because that's where a lot of the deep balls were coming. So it was just like teams were putting sometimes their X receiver, whether it was Leggett, different guys, they're in the boundary. And I'm seeing these guys like, all right, this is the matchup I want to see. I want to see you against this guy with an easier throw for the quarterback. He's not throwing all the way to the field. And I thought Richardson had some of those matchups, physical guy. And I think, like you said, Simms, a lot of these guys, when you watch them, you're like, they have different attributes that cross over that could make them really good NFL corners. And I thought Richardson had that as well. So I think it's in a little bit of an advantage when you play in the SEC and some of these guys that you're playing against and you have a chance to shine. I think that's what it comes down to because NFL scouts want to evaluate you against NFL receivers, and they want to see that. And yes, everybody wants to watch you in your drills and your hips and all that. But like, what do you do when a guy sets up a route and he comes in there a little bit slow, explodes on an out route and then turns it up? Like, those are the things that you don't want to be teaching all the time for the first time once they get into the NFL, because the delicate part of your confidence at corners, we've seen it, Simms. You get a guy out there when he's young, he's learning, he's not really ready, but he gets beat time and time again. Sometimes those guys never really recover and become good players.
Right.
So you want some of that teaching to not be the first time they've ever heard it once they get in there, because you don't have much time to get guys ready to go up against some of these animals that they're going to play week in and week out.
Yeah, I see that. That's where I think sometimes the draft community misses and looks a little too much technique-y stuff when it comes to corner, right? And like we talk about all the time, the great corners of all time, they didn't come into the league and we were like, oh, Champ Bailey, his technique is so great. We were just like, holy shit, he's fast and he can run with anybody. And the same with Dion or Darrell Green or Darrell Revis or whatever, right? Where I think the mistakes made a lot of the times is it does get into the technique, he plays zone, right? That was to me the problem with the Jeff Okudah. I liked a lot about his game, but everybody talked about the technique and
Polished.
I was like, right, polished. So what? He's a finished product. I don't necessarily like that, to what Devin's saying, right? There's things you're going to learn, but I think what he sees with the kid from Mississippi State is similar to me. It's a little raw. It's not perfect, but he's tall, he's long, and he can run with anybody. And for being tall and long, he actually changes direction and stops and starts pretty good for that, which is rare, right? He's not going to be the guy you always want to match up against a smaller, maybe change of direction guy, but the T. Higgins of the world, you're like, hey, DeCamerion Richardson, go out. T. Higgins, you're perfect to match up with him. I want to hit on the other guy you talked about, Rakestraw, right? Rakestraw really and Rakestraw might end up being in my top 5 safety things because I liked him, but I just didn't love him at corner and saw the things you saw. Like, they obviously thought he was the man. The attitude's the man. One of the guys I said to Ahmed was, I goes, he reminds me of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, really, with that attitude and physicality, right?
Yep, I like that.
Yeah, he hits you that way. I don't know if he's as good as like coverage-wise, man-to-man as Chauncey Gardner was coming out of Florida, but it is that same physical attitude, safety, maybe nickel, like how Devin talked about a little bit before. Nickel against maybe it's a tight end who plays in the slot a lot, or it's a bigger Michael Thomas, right, type of slot receiver. That's where he makes sense. But yeah, he was a tough eval for me because a pure corner, I didn't love him, but as a can I have him on my defense to talk shit and be a safety and get in your face? That's where I loved Rakestraw, and it's just about a team having that spot that makes sense for him on their defense.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Devin?
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. I think from the standpoint of like a guy like Brian Branch coming out was just a safety, right? Branch is a safety. He goes to Detroit. Yeah, he kind of plays safety, but he kind of plays nickel corner too. So I think the way the league is now, those kind of guys that can do multiple things. You think of Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore,
Right.
who is different than everybody because of his height and size wise. But it's that guy he's a safety, but he also does a lot of corner type things. And it's hard to find guys like that. I was a corner than a safety, but I was never a good blend of both of them when it comes to blitzing and then playing in the slot. I never felt comfortable in those places. So you don't always correlate a guy that plays safety and plays corner, and they're just that perfect matchup. But you watch guys like Brian Branch, and you see his ability to come off the edge on a blitz, or his ability to be in an outside leverage man-to-man defense and funnel everything back into his help in the middle, or match guys. Like when you see those things, you look at Enos Rakestraw and you're like, all right, they line him up outside a little bit. All right, they moved him inside a little bit. Okay, he's doing different things. Wow, he just blitzed on this play. He's aggressive. So I think those guys are hard to find in this league because what we said earlier, you don't always see the translation, especially when you watch college offenses. It doesn't always transfer right over to what a guy's going to see from the NFL offenses. So having these guys that you can kind of see a future in, man, this guy can do this guy can possibly do that. Same thing like you just said with Richardson. Christian Gonzalez was very similar. When he came out, I remember talking to the New England corner coach, and he was like, man, he's tall, but he can go out there and guard a 5'8" guy. Like, that's hard to find. And I think that's what teams have to see. All right, what is our defense? What are we going to ask a guy to do? And do we think he can do that? And I think Rakestraw is a guy that if you had a Detroit-style defense where you don't necessarily have a true, like, nickel corner, but a kind of versatile poker chip that you want to just put in the slot, I think Rakestraw could be a guy that fills that role.
Yeah, I hear you there. I hear you totally. I think that's exactly what he's going to be looked at. Safety, nickel guy, right in between there. Like, what about – all right, so here's one more because I know we have some questions from the homies that I want you to answer that are kind of around the corners and are a little bit New England Patriots-centric, so we got to get your opinion on some of those things. But I just, as I was sitting here talking to you, I was like, damn, like, all right, McCourty played with Darrelle Revis, Aqib Talib, and Stephon Gilmore, right? I mean, it's three of the better island corners that we've seen in football over the last 20 years, right? To you, give us a little bit of like a thesis statement on all three of them, which made them special and why, and what, maybe why they were a little different than the other guy.
Yeah, man. Talib, to me, had the highest overall football IQ. Talib's thing was, like, he got to our team, and that week he started and played him every snap at corner and just, like, would roll on the defense. Like, he would be like, Dev, just give me the overall kind of coverage. It's like, all right, I'd like to leave. This like cover 3. And he'd be like, cool. And why he loved to know that was Talib wanted to know where he could gamble.
Yeah.
It was always about how can I get an interception? How can I get the ball in my hands to make a big play? So if he knew where I was going to be or where the linebacker was going to be, and he would ask them, hey, you going to be 2 yards outside the numbers or you going to be on the numbers? I need to know exactly where you're going to be. He never minded, hey, if we had a double team here, he loved it. All right, Dev, if he go inside, you got him, and then I'm free. Because once he's free, he can go anywhere. Revis and Gilmore, don't double team with him. Don't do anything. Those guys are very similar, quiet guys until they get on the field. Then they're going to push you after the whistle if it helps, talk trash to you, but they just want to be on their guy. I want to know where my guy is. I always want to be up unless I think there's a good reason to be off because I know from a route recognition standpoint. So it was very interesting to me because I first played with Talib. So I was like, dang, okay, all these top corners, they're loud, they talk trash. And then Revis gets there, super quiet technician, stays up there, whether he jams you or not. He knows every angle that you're going to compete at. And then when Gilmore got there, I could tell Gilmore was like in the image of Revis, of what he watched, what he studied. And I thought the difference, I thought they were similar, and I thought Gilmore had a little better ball skills and getting interceptions than Revis did. But to me, the cool thing about Revis was when you watch him in the game, it didn't surprise you because he barely ever got beat in practice.
Right.
Whether it was off season, we were training in Arizona, whether it was in season going against Brady on the practice field, it was like unbelievable to watch day in and day out. But those three guys, to me, when they got on the team, I was like, okay, now I see why I wasn't that good at corner, because this is really good at corner.
So what? This is one of my favorite things about football is that everything affects everything else, right? It's like you have a bad secondary or they're getting beat up. Right. Invest in your defensive line to make the time that the quarterback has to throw a little bit less. There are different ways to do things.
Yeah.
So when you have two guys like that, like shut down island corners, well, like what does that do to you and the rest of the defense? Like how much easier is your job there, or just how different is it when you have that mentality and that guy out there that has that mentality?
The guy in their garden's done. Like you literally, and the cool thing about playing with those guys was you name it. It wasn't like, oh, only if they play this guy. We played against Devontae Adams in 2018 with Gilmore. Whenever we doubled Adams, Gilmore was like, hey, switch. And my brother took Adams and we doubled him, and he went to the other side and was like, okay, we got a double on Adams. Whoever Gilmore has, we're not worried about. When we had Revis, we played multiple guys. We played Green Bay again in 14, where Aaron Rodgers is killing us. So we have put Revis on Randall Cobb in the slot. Revis was usually outside. We said, you know what? You're going to go in the slot. So then Jordy Nelson's having a pretty good game. It was like, you know what? Revis, forget about that. Devin, you just stay in the middle of the field, read where Cobb goes. Revis, you go get Jordy Nelson. All right, we don't have to worry about that. It was just unbelievable. And the same thing when we played Atlanta, when Revis was there, he took Roddy White and we double-teamed Julio Jones, not like on certain plays. We double-teamed Julio Jones everywhere.
Every play, right.
Every play. And then we doubled double Gonzalez with the linebacker and the safety. And then Revis had no help on Roddy White, who was no slouch, was a really good receiver.
Right.
And it was like, you're in blitz coverage with no blitz the whole game. So my time in New England, we did things that was not sound football-wise, that you just don't do. But it was like we have to take advantage of having these guys on our football team because other people don't have weapons like that you can say, go do this, and we'll just leave you by yourself for 60, 65 snaps and figure it out. And that was a cool thing for me, that I don't see defense the same. We'll be sitting in there Sunday, and we'll be watching a guy go off, and I'm sitting there like, just double team him. Just take him away and make the team do something else. You know he can beat you.
Right.
But it's a very interesting thing when you talk football because not everybody believes that.
You can do when you got corners like that, like he's talking about. Defense can really mess with the quarterback's brain, right? It really can. It's like he said, you're a quarterback. We've been taught by the head coaches and all the smart people of football about sound football, what should be done, what should not be done. And then you play a team like New England who might have the corners like he's talking about, and you're going, wait, they can't play this defense against this cover. This doesn't make sense. And they do it. And then you're like, wait, I don't know, who am I supposed to read here? Wait, hold on. We don't have a rule for this defense. No one, my coach never told me cover zero, double this guy, blah, 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 where the I'm supposed to go with the ball, right? And that's where it could be really cool. And that's where, I mean, again, like he was a part of that. Remember Mahomes' first year as a quarterback?
Sure.
AFC Championship game. Like, what coverage is this? The safety in the middle of the field keeps going to double Tyree. What are they doing? They couldn't figure it out for a full half. And then the second half, they came out and they finally figured it out a little bit and started to make a plays. But
it was a little different. Second half was a little different.
The second half was a little different. Yeah, the Magic Man got hot. He started to make some throws, and it became a fun game. But yeah, that's what a corner can really do. It frees up the rest of the defense, like he says, to be creative or do whatever else. Yo, homies, what's up? I know it's the offseason, but it's never the offseason on Chris Simms Unbuttoned. Me and Ahmed Fareed are going to be here for it all. You know, we got free agency. We're going to break it all down. The draft, the rankings of positions. Of course, we're going to unpack it all. Hit subscribe, get to my free agency reactions, 2024 draft rankings and more. Thanks again for watching. Peace out, homies. See you soon.